Hello students, have you heard the name George Herbert Mead? Who is he? Is he even a sociologist? Initially, this person is a psychologist. To be more precise, he starts his journey like a philosopher. Later, he goes and becomes a child psychologist and becomes popular in the realm of sociology. In our Sociology Thinker series, we are trying to understand one thinker after the other. Like if we begin to see what was a contribution that was done by Karl Marx, Durkheim, in the same way, this person, George Herbert Mead, is also a very important contributor. In fact, he is the sixth thinker from our Unit 4, Paper 1 Sociology. Now, before we begin, let me ask you a question. Why do you behave so differently among your friends, in front of your parents, in front of your special friends, teachers, etc.? There are different versions of you. Like if you go to a friend, you are going to ask me, how are you, mama? Drop. In front of your parents, you try to be very much like what we call sanskari kind of a person. You try to like jeep up, jeep mama, yes daddy, yes mommy. And then there are different versions of you in your school days, in your college days after graduation. All this is because that your self is not basically born with you, but rather it is a social construction. Now, to understand this scenario, let's look at who is George Herbert Mead. He was born in the middle of the 19th century and he died almost in the middle of the 20th century. He is popularly not as a sociologist. He is a sociologist, but initially, popularly, he wanted to contribute in the field of philosophy. He wanted to understand how does the psychology is constructed. So you can call him an early philosopher, an early psychologist who later translate and become as an American sociologist. He is also one of the founding fathers of the concept of mind, self, and society, which later combines and becomes the concept of symbolic interactionism. If you want me to explain something like in a one-liner fashion, I can tell that just a minute, yes. I can tell that this concept of mind, self, and society, the self is developed through social interaction using different forms of symbols. Let me just look at this here. Yeah. The self is constructed by using different forms of symbols. Now, before we go and try to understand the syllabus, let me just give you a little bit of the background that how Mead has been established. He is popularly known with his ideas of pragmatism, that reality is not a fix, but rather it is created through different forms of interactions. So the concept of pragmatism, where we get to see, has been taken. 1 minute. The concept of pragmatism has been taken not with a simple idea, but rather it is an evolutionary phenomenon which translates one after the other. It's something like in a stage-wise process. Like same gesture means different things for different meanings. Like if a person is winking an eye, but where that winking of an eye has been oriented, is it oriented toward opposite gender? It is oriented towards the same gender. It is oriented toward a child. There are different meanings. So to understand this concept, we need to look at what is happening at the ground level, from where the origination of pragmatism philosophy comes. We are not going to talk about in detail because that is not the syllabus, but Mead has been associated with this. On the other hand, if you look at ethics and social reforms, he has also criticized one popular German philosopher that we see was Nietzsche. Nietzsche was talking about that God is dead. He was trying to highlight that how ethics or the moral values of the society, it is fundamentally questionable. But Mead comes and says, no, these ethics and moral values, they are basically given by yourself, which is influenced by the society itself. He is also associated with educational theories and political thoughts. Let's go ahead and look at how the sociological syllabus of Mead has been associated with. Humans interact using different forms of symbols, and these symbols will help us to take the different forms of roles that we are having. For example, if you look at a small boy, he will be playing with something like WWF. He will be playing with cars. He is going to go and explore himself with outdoor phenomena. But if you look at a girl, they play something like doll or house. So their games are also designed with domestic things, or they are supposed to go and see with indoor activities. These kind of gender stereotyping, it is not something that you do it by your choice, but the society has kept on telling you how are we supposed to define ourselves. So we go and we take our roles, such as I would like to be identified as a he, I would be like to identify as a she, I like to identify as they, them, or whatever you call that as. When we look at the other concept, what is this phenomena of mind, self, and society? Basically, there were two set of people who has influenced me in creating this concept. One phenomena has been inspired by a sociologist such as C.H. Kulit, Charles Kulit. Another has been the father of psychology. His name is Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytical concept or iceberg theories and C.H. Kulit's looking glass self theory has influenced me in creating this concept of mind, self, and society. That it has this ability to think using the different forms of symbols. What is a mind? It's like a processor. We think in different forms of directions. What is self? We see ourselves in different shapes, and how the society is influencing us. All these three concepts are not different, but rather it is your form of identity that what society is creating it for you. And then what you create is you create two types of identity for yourself. And one is your personalized self and the other is your socialized self. That is I versus me. So basically your personal self and social self will keep on interacting with you. And that is how you are never completely by yourself, neither are you completely on the basis of society, but rather it's a mixture of both of them. This concept is very closely related to the psychoanalytical concept of Sigmund Freud, of that your complete individual self is it, your complete social self is like a superego, and in between you try to define yourself, which is called to be as the he. And then we look at the phenomena of symbolic interactionism, that we keep interacting with the society on the basis of different symbols that we are attaching. So there are different symbols that we are having on the basis of which we come and do those different interactions. Whether it is a religious interaction, whether it is a political interaction, whether it is something like a rainbow that is LGBT form of interaction, different symbols are being used for us to interact with the society. Mead was trying to explain these phenomena. So he has given the popular concept of mind, self, and society, I versus me, and then we are having the concept of the symbolic interactionism. There are other few concepts that can be highlighted over here, such as in his I versus me, he talks about the role that has been played by significant others, the role that has been played by generalized others. In our lecture series, we are going to look at it in a more detailed. But before we look at this previous year question, there are some important thinkers that I want you to look that they are very much connected to George Herbert Mead. Such as one thinker that I would highlight is one thinker that I would highlight is the first one is obviously that is Sigmund Freud. Another thinker that I want to highlight over here is C.H. Kulit. I would also want to highlight the dramaturgical approach, which is very much close to this, that has been given by Erving Goffman. So Erving Goffman is associated to this dramaturgical approach. And if you want to understand how these norms are shaping our behavior, an Indian thinker that I can associate is M.N. Sridhar. The norms of the society that they tend to shape us. So M.N. Sridhar is an Indian thinker, not very close related, but I would like to mention it over here. And then we are having some previous year questions which has been asked from this topic. And if you look at the 2025 question, GH Mead's concept of self is developed through social interaction. Yes, the self is developed by social interaction, which is nothing but the mind, self, and society. So what is your self? Your self is it is either your personal self or it is your social self, and that is I versus me. Next question, explain GH Mead's concept of generalized others and its role of formation of self. So same way, generalized others and significant others, these are the two concepts. So here it is only asking about one concept, but if you can also mention about significant others, surely you're going to get half marks. And then the 2023 question talks about I and me, role of interaction in the self. So these are some previous year questions. I want you to look at them, put it in the comment section, and if time permits, I will put a review of that, how you have written. So try to join the lecture series in which we are trying to explain one good thinker in a very detailed aspect. I will be dedicating 6 to 12 hours for every thinker so that you understand what's happening around it. That's it in our today's class. Thank you so much and have a nice day. In our next series, we will be looking at the father of sociology, that is Augustine.